Welcome to Music Monday. As always, we will have links to all the performances mentioned here in the show notes. Now, without intending to ruffle the feathers of the YouTube's copyright gods, I'd like to start by sharing a brief musical and audio and video clip from the 1939 Samuel Goldwyn film, They Shall Have Music. Check it out. And there you go. Now, about this film, we will concern ourselves with only two things today. Number one, who was playing the violin? And number two, why was he playing what he was playing? Well, that's easy. For starters, we know that the man playing the violin was Jascha Heifetz, who was born in 1901. He died in 1987. He was a Russian-American violinist with a very successful lifelong performing career. In this particular film, he plays himself stepping in to save a music school for poor children from foreclosure. And subsequently, in his life, he performed in other films and other TV projects only to increase his worldwide acclaim. So that takes care of point number one. That was Jascha Heifetz. And now that brings us to point number two. What was he playing? Well, he was playing a song titled Estrellita, which means little star. And that's the name of the song. So what do we actually know about this song? Well, I have a surprise for you. The song Estrellita was composed by our dear friend, Mexican composer Manuel M. Ponce. We just talked about him yesterday, and we discussed his song A la orilla de un palmar. And I figured, well, we might as well continue on the Manuel M. Ponce ride and continue discussing this extraordinary Mexican composer. But that begs the question, how did the song and the violinist Heifetz cross paths, and when? How did this happen? How could this Russian-American violinist discover this treasured Mexican song by Manuel M. Ponce? Well, it so happens that when he used to go on world tour, Jascha Heifetz liked to include music on the program by a composer of the country in which he was performing. And in 1923, he was in Mexico City, and that would be him in the middle of that photograph with those two other Mexican mariachi-looking guys. So he was in Mexico City. He realized he did not know any works by a Mexican composer. So he figured, what am I to do? So he was sitting at a cafe, and again, remember, 1923. He's sitting at a cafe, and he heard a local musician sing a popular song. That song happened to be Estrellita by Manuel M. Ponce. So he was instantly smitten with the song. So he figured, oh my God, I have to play this. So he took notes on his napkin, literally as in transcribing the song on the spot. And when I say notes on a napkin for a musician, is he picked up a pen or a pencil, we don't know, and he actually probably had to draw the score, the 5 lines of a music score, to notate the notes as they were going by on the spot. So that same day, that night actually, he composed his own arrangement for violin and piano based on the song. And eventually, Estrellita became one of his favorite encores. And of course, we know that encore is the fancy word for otra, 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 which is what we say in Mexico when we want to hear another song performed by someone. So this is not only the story of how he discovered the song, but of course, he went on to feature the song on the film that I just showed you 16 years later. And this in turn brought Manuel M. Ponce much success and renown around the world. Now, just as it was the case with the song we listened to yesterday, A la orilla de un palmar, Estrellita, as composed by Manuel M. Ponce, had lyrics. Ponce wrote both the music and the lyrics for the song. So let us find out what this song is all about. Now, Estrellita has two verses, and here is the first one. Estrellita del lejano cielo, que miras mi dolor, que sabes mi sufrir. Those are the first three lines, and that means, little star from the faraway sky, you look at my pain, you know of my suffering. And then the song continues by saying, baja y dime si me quiere un poco, porque yo no puedo sin su amor vivir. And that means, come down from the sky, come down from the stars, and tell me if he loves me or she loves me, even just a little bit. Si me quiere un poco is a beautiful phrase because it is genderless. So this could be, we don't know if the character of the song is a man or a woman. He or she just wants to know if he is loved by his or her spouse, even just a little bit. Porque yo no puedo sin su amor vivir. Because I cannot live without his or her love. Boom, that's just beautiful. And then the second verse continues, tú eres estrella, mi faro de amor, tú sabes que pronto he de morir. You are my beacon of love, dear star. You know that I shall die soon. Oops. And then the last half of the second verse repeats the second half of the first verse. Please come down and tell me if he loves me even just a little bit, because I cannot live without his love. So, that's the song. Now, did this song make sense to you? Were the song's intentions clear? Let us bring out a very helpful common device which I learned in music production when I studied music production. And we're going to call this device the 3 W's. And the 3 W's are who is singing to whom about what. Well, we know that he or she is singing to a little star. So we've resolved the first 2 W's. And what does he want, or what is he singing about? Well, he or she is desperate to know if love is in the air. So this is a nice, wonderful formula that helps you, or helps me in a lot of instances, to get into what music is about, what songs are about, and how nice to see a song that is clear in intention. And this who's singing to whom about what can be applied to songs, to books that you read, to plays that you watch, to opera that you enjoy, to a film. If a director, a producer, a composer, a writer, or a playwright doesn't have these 3 W's figured out, then it's going to be a project by a Kardashian, maybe. I don't know. What do I know? So anyhow, excuse me. Lots of talking makes me cough, and I hope you're enjoying this. Anyhow, let us now put all these lyrics together with the music that we heard a little bit about. We put this together, and I'm going to tell you ahead of time that 90% of all the magic in this song, 90% of all the magic in this song happens on the very first phrase. Estrellita del lejano cielo. That is 4 words, and all the magic, practically all the magic, happens in this phrase. Why? Well, we know that this character is, do I have it here? Yes, I have it here in big letters so that you can see the phrase. So why do I say that this is like the most important thing? Well, our character is singing to a star that happens to be far away. Estrellita del lejano cielo. Now, how do you represent far away in music? If you're a composer and you're talking about something that is far away, how do you do that with music? It could probably be with a very long note, like far away. Or it could be with a very long note that has a descending melody, like far. Or it could be, using a faraway note, literally, meaning that you use a note in the range of the instrument that is far from the other, like far, 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 far. You could be a very different pitch. I suppose you could also put the singer in the back of the theater where nobody would hear him or her, and that would be far away. But let us find out what Manuel M. Ponce does with the first phrase to represent this business of the star being far away. And let's listen to this with the advanced knowledge that 90% of all the magic you're here in this song will happen in this clip that we're going to listen to now. Wow, what was that? Well, for starters, that was Ailyn Pérez. She is a lyric opera soprano in Chicago. This was recorded in October 2020. She is the daughter of Mexican immigrants. She has toured with Andrea Bocelli as the guest soprano and has also shared the international stage with male singers like Plácido Domingo and Rolando Villazón. She's graced the world's most beautiful opera stages. But how did Ponce use music to describe how far away the star was? Oh God, I'm getting goosebumps with this. Well, for starters, he uses a huge musical leap. Da da dee da dee da dee. From da to dee, da da dee da dee da dee. So what is so amazing about that? You may be wondering. Well, let us consider the range of a soprano. And we have it here on the screen. These are voice ranges for different voice types. Here is the soprano. And the soprano, and by range, of course, we mean how low is the lowest note a soprano, in this case, can sing comfortably and without making us squirm a little bit, and what is the highest. Now, the soprano range, we learned from this chart, goes from middle C, or C4, to A6, which is this A, which is high above the treble clef. And that would be the highest range in the soprano's voice. But the first note that we heard in the Ponce, the na, da, 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 that first note is a C sharp, which is only a half a note higher than the soprano's lower range. And that first leap ended up in a G sharp, a G sharp that is only half a note lower than the soprano range. And for those of you that can read music, here is that first phrase. Here's that initial C sharp, da 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 da. Frogs on my throat. So that is a huge leap. I mean, the woman has just gotten on the stage, and in less than 2 bars, she's covered her entire vocal range at the beginning of the song. This is kind of like the equivalent of hopping on your Chevy and cranking the pedal to go from 0 to 120 kilometers per hour in less than 5 seconds at the beginning of your drive. I mean, it's that exciting. And I mean that somewhat literally, because as a musician, when you're presented with such a challenge, with such a beautiful phrase, to master it, it is as alluring as, say, when you're driving down a well-designed highway and you approach a long curve and you see ahead of time how much fun it's going to be to drive your car through that curve. Or it could be just as awesome as when you are a surfer and you're in the water and all of a sudden you see this huge wave approaching you and you just know that you're going to have to ride that wave. And if you ride it and come back from it, it's just a great experience. One other thing that we can notice, and this is very subtle, but I think it's very important, this high note that we just heard, the highest note, is the longest note that we've heard in the song so far. So that is another way in which Manuel M. Ponce tells us that the star is far away. Not only is the star far away high in the register, but it's also long. The note is long. So this is how a musician very intelligently interprets the lyrics in the song. So what comes next in the song? Let's find out. The song continues after Estrellita de lejano cielo, que miras mi dolor, que sabes mi sufrir. This, of course, we know is, we've heard that this means that you, the faraway star, you can see my pain, you know about my suffering. And then right after that comes the fourth line. And this fourth line is the what of the song. This is the meat and potatoes. Baja y dime si me quiere un poco. This is what the character of the song wants the most. She or he wants for that star to come down from the heavens and discuss, or reveal rather, whether he or she is very well loved by this person. So this is the meat and potatoes of the entire song. This is the character's quest. Let's listen to this phrase along with the previous two. Now here's the what of the song. Whoa! Whoa, what just happened? In the very first line, she had sung da da dee da dee da da. And now she just sung da da dee da dee da da. A higher note. An even higher note than when we heard before. How much higher? Well, the song went up to an A sharp, which is an additional whole step higher than the previous note. And this new note is a half a step higher than the upper range of a soprano, which means that not just any soprano can gracefully deliver that leap. And of course, this is the most important part of the song. You know, the character wants to know, am I loved or am I not loved? And then what happens next? Let's take a look. This is what happens next. Come down and tell me if he loves me even just a little bit. That's the high phrase we just heard. Because I cannot live without his love. Let's listen to this section and let us notice how at the end of the phrase, how the singer's expression changes when she gets to the phrase, sin su amor vivir, or cannot live without his love. Here. Oh my God. I mean, she is just full of love. And at the end of the phrase, she takes her hands and looks up. She's actually pleading to that star. And this kind of subtlety is what makes the difference between ordinary and extraordinary music. You break it down into, and I'm sorry I get all excited about this, but this is why I was just so loving my time with my research last night. You take the time to break these fucking things down, excuse the F word, And you can find so much amazing stuff in the music. It's not even funny. So Estrellita does not only have a beautiful melody, one that any musician would die to ride, it also has beautiful lyrics that are nicely interpreted musically by the composer by using a couple of interesting devices here and there, those giant leaps, the intervals, the long notes, or the huge, or the request at the end for the star to come down by a descending melody. Da 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 dee, da da. And that almost resembles the star coming down from the heavens, trying to answer the question. Now, of course, you drop this song down an octave, and it's right smack in the center of the range of a tenor.
Estrellita de lejano cielo.
And that was Mexican tenor Rolando Villazón from his 2021 album titled Mexico. And there have been many, many arrangements of the song throughout times, but the original Heifetz arrangement for violin is the one that is played the most. That was Blake Pouliot on the violin, recorded in October 2017. At only 25 years old, he has been praised by the Toronto Star as one of those special talents that comes along only once in a lifetime. So, just as in the case of the soprano versus the tenor, in the instrumental version, if you take the song down one octave, it is beautiful when performed by a cellist. And that was Biong Tsang on the cello with Lo-Kien Kao on the piano. These are two performers that delivered the song live at Austin City Hall on June 2017. Biong Tsang was born in the United States to Chinese parents. He made his professional debut with the New York Philharmonic Orchestra at age 11, and he has performed internationally as a concerto soloist and recitalist since then. Now, what bonds these two versions that we just heard, the violin and the cello version? Well, it is the Heifetz beautiful arrangement. Now, imagine what happens when that same arrangement gets transformed into a string orchestra version, one performed by a chamber orchestra. And that would be violinist Ray Chen with the Amsterdam Sinfonietta on February 2019. So, different versions, different instruments performing the melody, performed by different performers from many nationalities in different parts around the world, different places. And all of this only because in 98 years ago, in 1923, Heifetz was in Mexico City, sitting at a cafe, wondering what to do, what to play for an encore that evening, and he just happened to listen to someone performing Estrellita by Manuel M. Ponce.